Hey guys, this is Bill Nye, packing for another ruck hike on a rainy day. I didn't film my first one, but it was a ton of fun. I almost slipped and ate shit on the ground, but I didn't. Um, see, I have my real rucksack set up here, and then I've got this spare Alice pack my uncle gave me, and I use the same rainproof ruck cover, Dutch one. It was cheap, and yeah, I packed my ruck full of weights and water. So I normally just take the plates off and yeah. So it's 8 pounds. A few more pounds of clothes and water to fill this in, and it's about a 50-pound ruck you're looking at. So I find it actually weighs better if you put some of the weight inside of the Alice Pack radio pouch, because it's closer to the top of your back. So I have half of the weights up here, and then the rest packed down at the bottom. Real weights: weigh yourself and your gear. Weigh yourself first, then put your gear on, and weigh yourself again. Huh. That actually comes to over 45 pounds, even without the water. I may carry some light water instead of this hydration pack. I find that the Sawyer water bags fit great in mag pouches, whether they be closed top 556 or these open top 762 by 51s. But yeah, it's a great little way to carry a bit of water with you. So a few nights ago, on December 26th, the biggest rainstorm in a while hit California. I think around 2 inches of rain in a single night. So my idiot ass decided it was a perfect time to test my gear in the rain, knowing full well that my bivy bag is in shambles. All the seam tape is coming off of it. So basically the seams are just exposed. Now, if you never worked with Gore-Tex, you want seams that are covered. And my seams are not covered. So anyway, that's just a little bit of pretext there. So I'm struggling to cover my plate carrier from the worst of the rain, and so I end up throwing my parka over it, because I'm out there and I have this nice Gore-Tex parka, and I have to take all this stuff off to get in my sleeping bag. So yeah, I throw it over my plate carrier, and I lay down in my sleeping bag. I have all my stuff set up already, or so I thought. I lay down and I realize I don't have a ground mat. I apparently forgot to set up my thermarest, and so I sit in my sleeping bag and I cuss at myself for a few seconds, and fumbling around with the knots in the dark. I have my poncho over my head and torso, so I really can't see anything, and it's dark, and yeah, I finally get my thermarest out and I set it up, but in the process I get my sleeping clothes damp because I'm just out there fumbling in the rain. And I finally get everything together. I lay down, I go, do your worst. Biggest mistake of my life. I sat in my shelter for about a half an hour on my phone scrolling, kind of doing a little bit of documentation of my situation. So here's some footage from that. Look at that fucking boulder. Like, I finally fell asleep at 1 in the morning, and I woke up at around 2 a.m. with my feet being cold. And so I kicked some of my spare sleeping clothes that I wasn't wearing because it's like 50 degrees. I kicked them down to the bottom of the sleeping bag, and that solved the problem. I went back to sleep. Then I woke up again to water droplets hitting my forehead and my face, and I was covered by the poncho, and I said, huh, that's weird. And so I just took the bivy cover for your face, which you normally don't wear because you don't want condensation, but I was like, there's water dripping on my head. So put the bivy over my face, and I fell asleep again. I woke up at 5 a.m. and I realized my feet were still cold. And they were only getting cold when I was touching the bottom of my sleeping bag. Why would that be? Well, I realized that water was still dripping on my face. And then, I don't know why it took me so long to realize, but I'm soaking wet. Everything inside my sleeping bag is wet. The water seeped through the seams at my feet area, and it was basically pooled at the bottom of my bivy. My feet were getting dipped in it and getting cold, and I woke up because my clothes that I had kicked to the bottom had soaked through with water. So that was an awful feeling. And then I remember turning on my flashlight and looking, and I filmed this one too. And there's just water everywhere. Everything is like soaked.
Motherfucker.
So yeah, I sit around for another 20 minutes trying to sleep while soaking wet. And it's not that cold. It's only still like 50 degrees, even with high wind, but I just can't do it. It's too uncomfortable. Like, I tried to say, suck it up, cupcake. Couldn't do it. So finally I just got out, quickly threw on my parka, put my Gore-Tex pants back on, and then plate carrier helmet. And I'm trying to pack up in the cold and in the rain. And then it's finally time to put my boots back on. And I realized the pair of socks I was wearing in my bivy bag are obviously soaked. So I can't wear those. And then I take the socks that I put inside my Gore-Tex boots, Salomon Quest 4s. Love them, by the way. Grant them approved. Right here. And I realized those socks are wet as well because the tarp I had them in basically pooled with water, and there was like a little, not a little puddle, a big puddle in that area, and so my boots were soaked on the inside, and so it was a choice between wet socks or wet socks, and on top of that, wet boots. So there was no getting past it. Luckily, it was only a walk from my backyard to the inside of the garage, but yeah, if I had to walk any farther than that would have been really bad. So I went inside and I hung up all my stuff in either my bathroom or the garage, and I went to bed. So some lessons from this experience. Humans decided to live in structures, houses, whatever, for a reason. And also, always rainproof your equipment. Make sure it's all sealed. Make sure it's watertight. And even if it's just putting it in a garbage bag, that can save your life. Also, if you're not using a tent, which I don't know. Personally, tent is a unnecessary thing. Although maybe after this I'll reconsider that. I still think I'll be okay as long as I use the poncho and Walmart tarp correctly. But tie everything down like you're a retail store in Chicago, because if it's windy, your stuff's gonna start blowing up and then you're gonna get soaked, especially if it's raining. If it's just windy, then you might just be annoyed. And overall, it's better to learn your gear doesn't work when you're in a controlled setting, like in your backyard, so you're able to go into that nice heated house if things go south. It's better to do that and take some ridicule from people than learning your gear isn't watertight when it's pouring in 35 degrees and you freeze to death.